So there are some key words in Aurobindo yoga, in Aurobindo teachings, if you may say so. And these key words almost can be arranged in a hierarchical way. The first word is progress. That's what we were saying yesterday. Just teach the youth to progress. Don't give endpoints. You got a job, it's an endpoint. You got married, it's an endpoint. You have a house, it's an endpoint. The thirst for endless progress, one of the biggest gifts that one can have. It's so beautiful that in Aurobindo's yoga, you don't have, okay, you had this experience and realization. This thirst for progress gives us sense of youthfulness. There is no end to the disclosures of the infinite, and so it makes the journey fascinating. So progress is the first element to be always kept alive. The mother used the word, this flame of progress. Then the second word is, of course, evolution. Progress leads to evolution, not just the way we biologically understand it, but in the sense that it's an efflorescence of all that is latent within us. That's why nothing can be taught from outside. The seed is inside and it must blossom in its own beautiful way. So evolution is efflorescence of that which is hidden inside. We can't create something artificial from outside. The third key word is, which relates to the fourth, or rather the third key word is transformation. The goal of all this evolution is towards a progressive transformation. And this is the journey right from dust to man, and this is the journey which will be from man to the next station, and so on and so forth. It's an endless, infinite progression. So, normally this progress is conducted by a kind of evolutionary pressure which is within creation. Whether we like it or we don't like it, it is pushing us to exceed ourselves in different ways. And there are the harbingers of evolution. There are those who facilitate the evolutionary process. Human agencies, normally known as the vibhutis, who help in this process. Because in them nature has gone beyond a point and it wants to take a leap. And therefore, the leap that they take, as Aurobindo says that a genius creates a system and another genius breaks it. So that a new system can be, new progress can take place. So these are the vibhutis who help in the forward march, Lok Sangraharth of the Gita. And there are, of course, also the other players who also play their role, and they should play their role because they try to pull back. We have to choose and grow stronger through the wrestle and the embrace. So this is the way progress takes place ordinarily. But for each term, for each aeon, for each yuga, for each age of mankind, as we know the four ages, the golden, silver, bronze and iron, Satyug, Treta, Dwapar, Kalyug, there is a limit which nature sets, because if we prematurely exceed it, then the form will not be able to take it. Probably there is a kind way we can progress inwardly and enter into the infinity that is given to man. But the form will not be able to move at that pace, and it's likely to break down. And that's how, we have dissolutions, the pralayas, where beyond a point, it reaches a point where it kinds of gravitates. There are many aspects to it. Anyways, so our discussion is not about pralaya, but evolution. Pralaya is only a facilitator in that direction, in its own unique way. Everything facilitates in that direction. So, normally nature fixes a limit. When we reach that limit, in human beings, the limit is threefold nature, which the Gita describes. We have Tamagun, Rajagun, Satagun, and I'm not going into its detail. It's very well known. And Satagun is the highest that human beings can arrive at. A balanced life of equilibrium, harmony, light, peace. They do things according to in the Western context, we would say in the light of a discerning reason. In the Eastern context, we would say sattvic mode, according to the way it should be done, taking into consideration time, place, etc. This is the height to which human beings can go. And yet, this is not the ultimate that human beings are destined to be. So, this urge to go still beyond took two routes. One route has been to go beyond the frame of human reference. But when you go beyond the frame of human reference and the mass is not ready, individually we can go. The Buddha taught that, nirvana. You can arrive beyond the human frame. But people who do that, the world is not ready to, embody that kind of experience, that kind of light, that consciousness, which is still greater. So there is a tendency, there is a dislocation from the world as it is and that consciousness. And there are different ways people have tried to cope with this, dissonance. Some withdraw into trance more and more. Some remain in contact with the world through a little bit here and there, hanging supports. Because otherwise they cannot operate. The story of Swami Vivekananda, Sister Nivedita asked Sharadama, why is it that, when he talks about India, he's so wide, and when he talks about Brahman, he's so wide and everything. But when somebody says about India, anything is as if full of anger. Sometimes he would he couldn't take injustice. And, that was his. So, Ma Sharda says, that's a little veil of Maya deliberately put on him. Otherwise, he won't live here. That's what Sri Ramakrishna told about him. The day Narendra knows who he is, he will not stay, he will go away. So sometimes they keep a little hangout, some, as they say, balustrade to hold to, so that they can keep as a prop and operate in the world as masters, as vibhutis, as those who bring some light to earthly men. Eventually they withdraw, sometimes through traditions, etc. But is there anything greater than nirvana? If nirvana is the end, then life is absurd. The whole journey to go back to where you came from and go through. Okay, it's fine if it was a pleasant journey. Okay, fine. God sent us on a very much, wonderful trip. Okay, you go, have an earthly life. Look, it is so wonderful. Everything is so wonderful. Then you come back. That's still okay. But to go through this pain and suffering, which is so real, come to grips with evil, which can be so threatening to our existence. Divine who would make all this to say at the end, okay, I'll pull you out of this, would be an absurdity. And this is a question we have not raised. And Sri Aurobindo raises it for ourselves because we have all kinds of answers given. Your karma, God did everything right. You are the fellow who is responsible. And Sri Aurobindo speaks about it as if man was consulted when creation was made. So, to pass on the final buck to man, Sri Aurobindo doesn't do that. He assumes responsibility. Like the real leader, we are talking about leader. Leader assumes responsibility. He doesn't pass the buck to others. Mother would say that if anybody, goes stray, she said, I look into myself. Is to correct yourself. What a wonderful, at that point, the Divine Mother. So, from time to time when our evolution reaches a critical level where the forces of retrogression, which want to pull it backward, and the forces of ascension, they reach such a critical point that one wrong step can enfranchise all. So there are moments in our evolution when we reach that point where both these forces are in an acute struggle. And normally the divine who is pushing things from behind, and they are the vibhutis who are operating, now he steps into the forefront. It is one of the greatest fascinating mysteries. I just to think and feel about it, so amazing, Krishna pushing this creation from behind as the Purushottama of the Gita, Akshar Brahman and Charobhav. Suddenly one day that mystery steps into the forefront and says, I take the command of life and creatures, carrying the march of evolution forward. That's why the Gita speaks of this as one of the three great mysteries. One of them is the divine becoming human. He becomes human because, as we were discussing yesterday, there are three ways by which we can help humanity progress in education also, everywhere. One is by the power of the word, agency of the word. Second is by influence. And the third is by example. Power of the word, the divine comes. By then, all kinds of interpretations have distorted the word. And that's what as an aside, I must say, something very beautiful about Sanatan Dharma. It's one of the one alone, stand alone. I don't want to use the word religion, but for want of a better term, where the evolutionary impulsion is admitted. So there are great saints who come and they override the scriptures. And what they say becomes scripture. That's why the injunction in Indian thought is scripture is there and the master is there, follow the master. His word is the scripture. He has realized. By this realization they keep on and they realize in multiple ways. We were listening to yesterday to David Frawley, Madhavacharya, Ramanucharya and Shankaracharya, and all of them are approaching the infinite from their own unique angle. It gives an evolutionary process which is wonderful. But along with that, there is a larger evolution which is going on. It is not just the evolution of consciousness, but also the evolution of forms. That is also admitted in Indian thought, and that we find in the parable of the 10 avatars. So each avatar is the avatar of Vishnu, the great preserver. And he comes as a fish. He comes as a tortoise. He comes as a vara, the wild boar. He comes as half human, half animal. I don't know, we should teach it in the schools or not. I hope, I often have this problem with many of the schools which are labeled as integral. And I often tell them, you are teaching the gospel of Hiranyakashipu and not of Prahlad. We teach the same evolution, Darwinian evolution, struggle for existence, survival of the fittest. I've often said if survival of the fittest is the goal of life, then virus is self-sufficient, except that he has learned to feed upon others. It's not survival of the fittest that may seem to be, that may be the first law of life, but it's not the real last purpose. So the last purpose, when we look behind evolution, it is manifestation. That's what Sri Aurobindo says. All evolution is a manifestation. Manifestation of what? Of that which is hidden inside. That only can manifest. Nothing new can come. So that's why if the divine is at the base of this world, Eko Ham Bahushyam, as the Vedas say, then the end result, regardless of what we may think, conceive, imagine, want, not want, it doesn't matter, that it will blossom into the finest flower of divinity. There is no other logic to it. If the divine is at the core and seed of things, that's what will manifest. And if at the core and seed of things there is nothing, as the gospel of death says, then nothing really should have emerged out of nothing. So it's an absurdity ad infinitum. So there is the divine consciousness which is manifesting itself. And for this manifestation, it has taken matter. It is through matter it is manifesting. Otherwise, in its own world, it is all there already. The whole Mahabharata appears in the heart of Vyas. So we can take this manifestation in this way. Mahabharata is where? It's in Vyas before he has written it. Where is the Bhagavad? It's in the heart of Vyas. But it is in an unmanifest state. It is there. Manifestation means now, time and space, book, pen, all the various instruments, characters. You have the great Mahabharata, all the characters are etched now. They will go through a whole journey. And at the end of the entire Mahabharata, when people are saying, oh, what a gory war story you have written. And you ask Vyasa, what did you write? He said, that's what you are seeing, that I have written a gory war story, but I have written about the manifestation of Krishna on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. I have written about the gift of the Gita in the entire battle through which human beings pass through. So, the first thing we see these avatars give in their own way is the power of the word. Of course, the scriptures are there, Vedas, Upanishads are there, but over a period of time, there are human interpretations, they are natural. That's why we see different schools of Vedanta coming up. But the avatar, first task of the avatar is to bring out the truth of the Vedas in creation. That's why even the Matsya avatar, the fish, when she is asked, "What are you doing here?" She has to fight a demon. All of them have to fight a demon. So she says, the fish says, Vedan dharti, I am liberating the Vedas. Matsya didn't write a book, but liberated the Vedas. And it has, that story is in its own right, beautiful story, the first avatar. So it is liberating the secret knowledge which is hidden in creation, the Veda, through forms. That's what is the story which is going on. The real storyline behind the outer storyline. So by the power of word, more and more we see, especially we see in the life of Shri Krishna, Christ, few things, and Buddha and Sri Aurobindo. Little bit about Rama. There are some utterances which have become like, Mahavakyas to follow. So through the power of the word, they liberate the human consciousness from the molds of the past. We do not belong to the past dawns, but to the noons of the future. And release the divine afflatus, the evolutionary urge to move towards the future. All the avatars, to go into it will be a long journey, but all of them, they release us from the bounds of the past and open the doors to the future. So this is by the power of the word, the Gita. And Sri Aurobindo didn't want to take any chances. So he wrote everything about everything upon earth through the 37 volumes. It is a great tragedy that these volumes lie adorning the shelves of people's homes. They are meant to be read, to be awakened. Even one volume. And then the mother, to top it all, she said, "Oh, people will complain, they don't understand." She went on with other 31 volumes. I'm including the agenda and the conversations and many other conversations. So they have left enough by way of power of the word. And I can tell you, just reading them is magic. That's it. Just reading them is magic. But of course, it's not like a newspaper reading, let's know about what Sri Aurobindo said, let's know about what Shankaracharya said, let's know. It's with this urge that what is the state in which we are in? Is there a future for mankind? Is there hope? With this urge when we read, then those letters begin to release the light within them. Page by page, white star scripts of the gods born from the presses of light, page by page to the dim children of earth were given. So word. Second thing that the divine, when he becomes human, he does is by his influence, his presence. That's it. We may not understand it. It needs the divine vision to see it. That's why this prayer of the mother repeatedly, I feel one should, prayer when she first saw Sri Aurobindo. We see him as this, that, 100, ways. But how did the mother saw Sri Aurobindo? He whom we saw yesterday is here upon earth. His presence is enough. That's it. He is present. That's enough. And look at his presence. What a powerful presence it must be. That saw 2 world wars. And the asuras of imperialism, the asura of Marxist kind of communism, the asura of gross materialism, the asura of positivism, the asura of various isms, the asura of religion turned into superstition. All this, his presence, like a great assurance. And he saw all this pass. The world changed after 1950-56. What a powerful presence. At one place, the mother, several places she has spoken about this presence. You can feel it. Leave aside all these mentalized things. Just visit Sri Aurobindo's room once and see that powerful presence. So many years, 72 years, physical withdrawal, and yet you feel it. Something so powerful at the samadhi, vibrating with that presence. And, the mother speaks about an incident. In 1951, there is a lady who dies in the ashram context. And she sees that Sri Aurobindo's symbol is there on the forehead, her forehead, shining symbol. And Sri Aurobindo says, henceforth, whoever dies here will come straight to me. Now you see, don't turn it into a dogma that we must rush to Pondicherry to die. That's not, let's be very clear. That's not what it means. To a devotee, the divine is everywhere. I mean, we don't have to. But here, it is not about being a devotee. To a devotee, doesn't have to worry. Wherever he is, he remembers the divine. Divine is there. That's the eternal law. But here, the mother asks him, she too, because she was a lady with a very, very volatile temperament, prone to anger, would say, I am going to commit suicide if you don't eat my food, that kind of stuff. She said, she too. And Sri Aurobindo says, yes, unconditionally. And she says, what a power. She describes certain experiences that there was a man who died and she saw straight that he is going and fusing with Sri Aurobindo's supramental light. It says all that he had within him was the urge to just serve Sri Aurobindo. That's all. That's all. Sorry. It's not that's all. But all integral yoga, this, that, Sikhaya wa tarika. He just wanted to serve Sri Aurobindo. She says, immediately, and she saw the whole, his being gathered through flowers of service tree and going and fusing into Sri Aurobindo's supramental light. What a tremendous power, that presence. When Hitler is annexing one country after another, and then he is told, and what does Sri Aurobindo say? All right, we will see. And things began to turn. See, his presence, the mother says when she came, and this was the question going on, she also knew, he also knew the purpose for which they are here, the supramental manifestation, and they had labored for it for ages. As Agastya and Lopamudra in various aspects in Europe, India, different places, who knows? The mother speaks of as the first human prototype. They were both there. She describes that. So, she asked Sri Aurobindo inwardly, will it be this time? They knew what humanity is. And she says, Sri Aurobindo simply said, yes. And at that point, she saw the supramental consciousness, supramental light descending into matter. He says that was the power of his word, his mere presence. He's not a teacher, he's the avatar. His word counts. He has come with the mandate. When he says yes, the universe hears, because his yes is the yes that comes from beyond the cosmos, the transcendent taking a human body. Otherwise, within the cosmic bounds, we have to move. When transcendent comes and says yes, the world listens. Doesn't matter where the forces are, where they start getting aligned. Shri Krishna alone on the battlefield, unarmed. Sri Aurobindo says, if you have to make a choice, the world with all its shrapnels and all its armies, and Shri Krishna alone and unarmed, choose Krishna. That is wisdom. So, his influence. And that influence is not something which is going to die away with the physical withdrawal. It's gone into matter. The mother speaks of it that wherever we have placed our feet, there that influence has gone into the very atoms and it is spread into the entire earth. And that incidentally is the significance of relics, and I do hope that sometime we have in La Grace, and because it's an influence which is there in matter. And Sri Aurobindo withdrew from the physical, in the Gita it is said, Janma karma cha me divyam. Shri Krishna says, my birth and my works are divine. And I like to add, even my departure is divine. So, when Sri Aurobindo withdraws from the physical limits of a physical sight, so somebody wanted to give a message to the press. 5 days, the body was aglow with the supramental light. It was not going through any of the normal process. It was a victory over death, actually, if you see. The heart has stopped, the breathing has stopped, but the body is continuing to be just as it is. Neither there is rigor mortis, nor there is any signs of degeneration. In fact, a lotus smell was coming. People who carried Sri Aurobindo's body, one of them just left his body recently, he was in our Desiree, and I asked him, I have heard this story, is it true? He was so much full of, his entire dementia went into the background. Yes, I can still smell it in my fingers. That was the power over matter. Why did he withdraw? That's another story, to facilitate. Because we were not receptive. So he plunged into death. Ali is blind into the nether mysteries. So when he withdrew out of the limits of physical sight to facilitate, not because of any helpless subjection to death, then the disciple wrote a press release note. The mortal remains of Aurobindo will be interned into the Samadhi, and the mother looked at it, struck it off, and she wrote, there is nothing mortal about Aurobindo. Each cell of his body held the immortal flame. Read through his, even Savitri will speaks about it. And records of yoga and so many letters. Each cell held the immortal flame, and yet he let all these immortal cells enter into the earth atmosphere as his final gift, so that majority of humanity can be awakened. This was the great sacrifice the mother spoke about, so that the world can awaken to that by contagion, by contamination. One of the things, many other aspects of that mystery we have spoken about, but right now to focus on this. So his very presence, which continues to be here as a living assurance of the supramental. There are a number of messages that the mother gave. They're all there in Mother's Collected Works, volume 13, Mahasamadhi. They are there in Monada's book, Blessing Benedictions of the Grace, and just for want of time, so we all can read it there. And it's so wonderful. So his presence, which continues as an influence. There is a letter of Aurobindo where he says why one must, those who are doing yoga outside, what Aurobindo would say. He said that, yes, there are many disciples who are doing the yoga outside. But time to time, they are advised from time to time to return back to the place of central influence. That is how he described. Central influence. Of course, this one may say it's before the supramental manifestation, all that is fine. But the place of central influence. And then get recharged and go back. So sometimes I used to take leave 4 times a year, somehow or the other, rush to Pondicherry. My parents wanted me to come to them. So I would say, no, sorry to say, and confess that I would tell a lie. Chutti nahi milti hai. I am doing my MD. And I would write 4 letters to be posted every week by a friend locally to go to Pondicherry. So they would get a message. Those who have fortunately no phones. So, everything is fine. It's so beautiful just to go to that influence to receive. In whatever way that influence can come in many ways in the physical. Something touched by the mother and Aurobindo. We don't realize what it means. Anything touched by her continues to carry something of a touch, that influence. Just the sand, when Aurobindo came to Pondicherry, one of the things that he carried with him, it was the mud of Dakshineshwar. The sand. I got so ecstatic that one day I just ate the this sand in playground. I said, at least it has gone inside. It is a joy just to feel that. Of course, it requires a certain kind of inner sensitivity. But even if we do not, still its influence will be there. So influence. And the third, as the living example. So people often, we recommend read books. Please read Aurobindo's life. That itself is liberating. In Indian thought, we have one side, Vedanta, the Gita. But there was a parallel track opened, which at least personally I found extremely helpful. Read all this, wonderful. I also read the Vedas, the Upanishads, all this. But the joy and the opening that came through reading of the Ramayana, the Mahabharata and Bhagavata was very different. Read the life of Aurobindo. It's so purifying, vivifying, rejuvenating. You can never lose hope after reading it. There are some beautiful biographies. One of them is Rishabh Chand's Aurobindo's Life Unique. Wonderful book. I think a couple of them have already been given here. Just to read them. When we read the life of Rama, it is not what he said, but what he was as a person. What a yardstick of an ideal human being. Still we would strive to reach there. When I used to read about Rama in Ramayana, the way he's portrayed, just his physical characteristic, I cannot forget, Ajanu Bhujshar Chap Dhari Sangram Ajit Karadoshanam. What his body is, what his eyes are. These are not just a way of adoring and sentimental outpourings. When we love the divine embodied, we begin to become like him. This is the secret of yoga. Of course, we can love the divine even without the embodiment, but how much more difficult? Try conceiving the divine, the absolute, all who dwells in all and has become all this. Isha Upanishad, meditate on the verse, Yastu Sarvani Bhutani Atman Nevanu Atme Vabhut Vijanata Tatra Ko Moha Kashoka Ekatvam Anupashyata Vasudevam Sarvamiti Yat Kincha Jagatyam Jagat. Now, it's fantastic. I mean, mantra has its power, but you are just wondering, what is this Vasudeva who is in everything and everywhere? But when you see Aurobindo, when you see the mother, okay, fine. Your mind needs to hold on to Nam and Roop to liberate from the Nam and Roop. What ensnares us? Forms and shapes, but within it is the One. So when the One assumes a form and shape, His name and form liberates us. This is the beauty. He assumes the same strategy. So his life becomes a living example. How he dealt with the various issues. And Mother and Aurobindo, every aspect of human life they have taken. Be it marriage, be it children, be it a job, be it, danger, difficulty, making the choices. And what dangers? It's unimaginable, with the British government sword on his head. And that's why when people would say, when once Niruddha wrote to him, Sir, this problem, that problem, he said, yes, you have to graduate in equanimity. I have gone through my own practice, passed MA, now your turn, please. Whenever we are besieged with difficulties, I advise, don't go into philosophy. Just read Aurobindo's Tales of Prison Life. You will feel you are in bliss. Tales of Prison. Carry this book whenever you want to, any challenge of life. Read with one little, and he writes so humorously, just as an aside, that, there is this, inside the prison house, he had the, to attached, you have to, for the privy, and then they would cover it. After many hours, they would take it, clean it, and bring it back. So he says, I'd heard about the attached bathrooms and toilets, but I never imagined that this luxury will be given to me here. Now imagine water. It's not luxury. It's smell, stench. With a single blanket to put it below, to put it on top, to take one bowl which he has to use for ablutions, for drinking water, for food, everything. Aurobindo never complained. And when he writes about it, you will be, you won't know whether to laugh or whether to cry. If you read the words, you will be splitting into laughter. But when you just imagine that the divine becomes human and has to go through all this, your heart will bleed. This is how he makes so light of such a situation. And then after that, we think of our big things as small things, our big worries. Mother said, my children, you are hypnotized by your difficulties and you do not believe in grace. These were her words. Because we are all the time thinking of difficulties, problems. But you don't know what is grace. So when we read their life, example, and Aurobindo emphasized on this, that Shri Krishna uses this phrase in the Gita, that not only he dwells within the human body, Manavi Tanu Ashritam, but God's own example. Which, he must, the Calvary of Grace. When we read the life of Christ, this can be so liberating just to read that. Life of Buddha. Here is a young prince who had so many challenges. He had everything in life he could imagine, and yet he is vexed by this problem that why human beings suffer. And he leaves a house. People are saying, whether he left his wife or child. Here is a person who was not leaving his wife and child. He was besieged with this idea that mankind is suffering. Is there a way that they can come out of it? What a tremendous impulse that heaved inside his heart. Nothing mattered. living, non-living were irrelevant. So his example. This is the avatar and much more. Because the avatar for the first time brings matter directly into contact with the Supreme. Otherwise, the Supreme touches matter. I think somebody was mentioning the other day Ayatriya Upanishad, and where through the different layers matter is held. So we have the gods. Gods are the cosmic managers. Then we have titans hidden in the inconscient. Then we have all the vital worlds and all this. Then the material world. But the beauty is God has conveniently hidden himself here. And during the evolutionary process, he takes a material body. Even if nobody knows that he is in avatar. Avatar never advertises himself. Aurobindo dropped hints here and there. When he was asked by Nagin Doshi, Sir, in this life you have come as avatars. What were you in previous lives? He says, as vibhutis. He did not refute. So he didn't say, no, we are not as avatars, as vibhutis. So what were you doing as vibhutis? So he says, carrying on the evolution. So he asked, Sir, what does it mean? He says, to explain it, I have to write the entire spiritual history of mankind. Carrying on the evolution. When Champaklalji, makes on his feet, diagram of his feet, draws, not diagram, but there's a very sweet story, but not to go into detail, mother's feet and Aurobindo's feet. And then he wants them to write something on it. So mother smiles and she passes it on to Aurobindo and says, he wants to write something on it. So Aurobindo takes up the mother's feet and writes on it, Aditi, white lotus, Aditi, the divine consciousness. And then he gives it. So then the mother picks up the Aurobindos and she writes below that, Aurobindo, the avatar, the red lotus, the avatar. So there are many such hints. One of them is where the mother directly says, which the phrase, the last avatar. She says that somebody asked the mother about, the future avatars. She says, as far as it has been known that Aurobindo is the last avatar in the human body, after that we will see. This used to be for me an enigma as I grew up in a child, that why things stop with the 10th avatar. This used to be. But of course I would try to understand by number 10. Number 10 is a sign of perfection. 1 and 0 are coming together. So all this I used to explain to myself. 10 implies completeness. But then I understood that because there is no more a human body after the 10th avatar. The human body has progressed as the fish, as the tortoise, as the vara, as the middle half human, half animal, as the dwarf man, as the wild man, Rajogun Sampan, as the Sattvic illumined man, and so on and so forth, till it reaches a point where it must cross a critical barrier and be transmuted out of an animal body, human body, into a divinized body. That is why the divine takes a human body to give a concrete stamp, touch it, release those vibrations, divine vibration directly. It's a great mystery how he takes the human body. In a certain sense, the whole universe is the evidence of the divine taking a body. But it is very, very indirectly in a diminished way. So that is the beauty of the avatar. He takes a human body to open a doorway, to leave that impress upon matter, which is never erased and forgotten. So that matter eventually, it's activated. If I want to use a scientific language, he activates matter to behave in a certain way, move towards a certain direction. Now it has that divine element inside it. It directly, the supramental force it contains. Of course, every avatar is a divine manifestation. But they come to release a certain degree of consciousness and matter becomes ready. Have you ever wondered why chimpanzees and human beings, elephants, intelligent with the brain, everything is there? Of course, why human beings, for us, language comes natural. Of course, we can explain evolution takes place, the sulci and gyri, it makes it a very complex brain within a small. Why all this has happened? Because a new thing has to manifest, a new kind of thought. So avatar starts changing this world in two ways. One is from within. It doesn't care whether human beings believe in it or not. Mother said, fortunately, the work does not depend upon that at all. She made it very clear that even if a single human being did not believe, still the avatar will do the work and go. It seals the destiny. And the second is that he directly acts upon matter by the very fact he has assumed a human body, and therefore matter begins to become primed to the divine consciousness, to the divine vibration of that level which the avatar brings and implants in matter. A branch of heaven transplant to human soil in death's tremendous hour. This is what it means, that in death's tremendous hour he implants. So the Gita speaks of these 3 or 4 signs of the avatar. When does he come? Yada yada hi dharmasya glani bhavati bharata. Dharmasya glani is what? It's not like people become irreligious. It's just that the truths that were released by the great masters were turned into hard, crystallized, codified religious dogmas, and they were lost to the heart of mankind. And he comes to release dharmasya glani. It's the downfall, the dharma is lost. Like, to take an example, the fourfold order of society, the Chaturvarna, which was so profound when we read Sri Aurobindo's writing, but it had turned into a means for hierarchically being superior and by heredity. So it had to be broken. So dharmasya glani bhavati bharata. Then what does the divine do? Yada yada hi dharmasya glani bhavati bharata. Abhyuthanam dharmasya tadatman shajamyam. Then to release once again the dharma. I come. But it is not going back to the past. He has broken it. He will release it so that something new may come. Every avatar does it. So people who say Sri Aurobindo has said and done something which you don't find in traditional Vedanta. Well, yes, every avatar has done that. Take Sri Krishna, he went beyond. Rama, Buddha, he went beyond. He was even regarded as Avedic simply because, his teachings, though they are in line with the profoundest truths of the Veda, but he went beyond in his own way. Christ, he broke whatever were the formulations of that time. And though it's a different story that every avatar, there is a tendency for humanity to reduce him back to a religion. And now Sri Aurobindo, he comes to again to give a new sense to this whole idea which is sown in the consciousness of earth and creation, Ekoham Bahushyam. The one wanted to become many. Now he says, yes, many. Each will become divine, not only within, which we are already, but even in matter, even in the body. So he comes to release that. So he opens the door to the next future. Future next. He is the key, he is the gate. That's why every avatar comes and says, I am the gate and I am the path. It's a very profound truth. It's not a sentimental thing. You have to go through that gate. That's why even Buddha says, Dhammam Sharanam Gacchami, Sangham Sharanam Gacchami, Buddham Sharanam Gacchami. I am not going into the semantics and the interpretations. I heard them all. But it's very clear. He is the gate. He is the path. He gives the path. Whether it be the eightfold path or the way of the Gita or now Sri Aurobindo, the integral yoga or simply the mother's yoga, he gives the path. So he becomes the path. And then of course the collectivity, because evolution is not an individual process, it is a collective process. Individually we can enter into nirvana, individually we can take sannyasa. Okay, that's an option for the weak or for the sattvically deluded. There is no word for illusion. Like delusion, we say deluded. So sattvic illusion. People who are driven by a sattvic illusion for moksha of the kind that is understood. There is a true sense of the moksha. Freedom from ignorance. But moksha, let's get away from this world of pain and suffering where we are born again and again. Punarapi janamam, punarapi maranam, punarapi janani, jatare shenam. Let's come out of this horror, nightmare. Well, they have an exit door, they can take it. But the avatar doesn't come for these individuals who are wanting to run away. He doesn't come only to establish a little ashram where some people will do Bhaj Govinda, Mood Mate. That's okay. We can do that. But he comes for the collective emancipation of mankind to release that new divine possibility in the race. And all who are ready, anywhere in the world, that's how the mother's message is. The future of the earth depends upon a change of consciousness, and the change is bound to come. But it is left to men to decide whether they will collaborate with the change, or the change is thrust upon them by the power of crashing circumstances. She even says, a new world based upon truth is born, refusing its old slavery to falsehood. I was speaking yesterday when she was asked, what is it that the supermind will throw out of nature? She said, why should it throw out? It is an all-comprehensive truth. Then she pauses and says, well, it will throw away hypocrisy, artificiality, hypocrisy. That is the one thing it will throw away. Because that's a kind of falsehood we most freely indulge in. So here comes this beautiful thing that he comes and opens the path. And then what does he do? Paritranaya sadhuna, vinashaya cha dushritam. Those who are good not in sadhunam only good, they are striving, but they are, the forces of downward gravitation are so strong. So he releases them. That's why suddenly you see from 56, 60, now today yoga has become a household word, and we have such gatherings. I think very beautifully, not so beautifully, but very aptly, Vladimir was reminding of those days when in Russia you had to hide, even to read Aurobindo. I have heard about this. And quietly you can walk outside, but otherwise, and there were places like that. I mean, in India, you couldn't just, well, I can speak about in Goa. If you were a Hindu and it came to be known that you have a tulsi paudha, the sacred, what is tulsi called in English? Basil plant in your house, because it's a sign of Hindu identity, you will be killed. You have to be converted or killed. Your property will be confiscated even if 2 generations back you were converted, but you are not following that. These are horrors which nobody knows in the name of God. Where could these people go? They must have cried. I can only imagine what people now talk about, what they must have gone through when Islamic invasion and British invasion was taking place, and outwardly there is freedom, but you are mugged. Sorry to say, dogs and Indians not allowed. These are facts. What they must have felt inside, compressed. Paritranaya sadhunam. The day Aurobindo was taken to the jail, that day the sun of British Empire started to be set. Paritranaya sadhunam, vinashaya cha dushkritam. The evildoers. Who are the evildoers? It's not about petty things that we know. Evildoers are those that want to take humanity back into the morass on which it has immersed. The root of which is selfishness, crass egoism, meanness. Aurobindo says there are only 2 sins that I find difficult to pardon. Guess what? Not the 7 cardinal sins. He speaks of selfishness and meanness. And then he says, but they are also universal, so you should. And there are 2 virtues, love and courage. So, vinashaya cha dushkritam, the entire world wars were fought in the presence of Mother and Aurobindo. Aurobindo said it's the mother's war. And this is how they saved the earth. People don't know what a storm passed and what saved them from danger. Perhaps still don't know, but that is not relevant. What is relevant is, what do we do now? People often ask. And Aurobindo quotes what is given in the Gita. And he says, who benefits from the fruits of the avatars coming? And he quotes from the Gita, Mad bhavam madgata madhyaji ma namaskuru sarva dharman parityajya mamikam sharanam raja. Those who, abandoning all else, become full of the divine, embodied divine, the avatar, full of him. Mad bhavam, who take refuge in him, madgata. Man mana bhav Madhbhakta, Madhyaji Manamashkuru, whose thoughts are full of the divine, the embodied divine who has come as the avatar, who abandon everything and take surrender and refuge in him. So that's what I was saying between evolution and transformation. I had started by saying there are 4 words, then I said but 3 words. So what is connecting the evolution and transformation is surrender to the embodied divine. It's the crucial element in Sri Aurobindo's yoga. Repeatedly he has emphasized, it begins with surrender, it ends with surrender. It's not for nothing that countless letters Sri Aurobindo speaks of, take refuge in the mother, open to the mother, open to the mother. It's a constant refrain in letters on yoga. The one thing which is so difficult because we are so individualized, how can we are human beings? We have to do something ourselves. Unless we do something, well, he reminds us, look here, you do. Little children do. When children come to help mama, when she is making food, mama says, okay. Hum kya kare? Okay, you maybe you wash the potatoes and give. He says the joy. Before I close, this is what we should do. This, when this Krishna avatar, there is this, they used to pray to Indra, the rain god. And Krishna says, why are you doing all these prayers? Pray to Govardhan. Now this story is very deep and meaningful, and I'm avoiding going into my pitara of stories and there. So he says, what do you mean, sir? He is going to blast us. He says, we'll see. So they start praying to the mountain, Govardhan, to the hill. Govardhan, look at the meaning. Matter. So he starts pouring. So this is now see, because of you, we did this, now we have this. He says, wait. Let us together take this hill up. What do you mean, sir? Come, together we can do it. So together they lift the hill up as the story goes. And if you see that image of Krishna, Krishna is lifting the hill with his little finger. And all the Gopal, Gwal, Bal, the cowherds, boy and girls, they are also putting a stick as if they are supporting the hill. They are doing a great favor to Krishna, but it's Krishna who is lifting it. So this is the scenario now. He has brought the new creation and the mother is carrying it forward. But she is giving us the joy of doing something so that we feel important. Take your sticks and put it, the staff of faith. It gives us a joy. And also surrender should not be tamasic. It's a very dynamic process. Not easy to surrender, let me tell. All our individuality will rebel. Because the ego always wants to do something and take credit for it. So this is the door they have opened. Through which, who will go through? Not the whole humanity at once. Those who are ready, who have the courage to surrender, who have faith and love to heed the call of the flute and walk through the narrow gorge towards the new creation. For the rest, debate and discuss. Sri Aurobindo has already said, God shall grow up while the wise men talk and sleep. And belief shall be not till the work is done. So it's a wonderful subject. Actually, I could just go on for hours. So I have to check myself several times. So, but let me close with these lines from Savitri, which gives us several places in Savitri. We see about the avatar. Avatar is the divine become human who opens the door. Then humanity can move through the next step. Otherwise, nature will not allow. There are people who conceived of a new world, new creation. People conceived. Sri Aurobindo speaks of it in one of his poems, In the Moonlight. The iron age has ended, only now the last dying spasms, fierce spasms of a dying world shall shake the nations, and when that is past, earth, vast of its ills, shall raise a fairer brow. And then he says, he speaks of what Shelley dreamed, what John of Patmos saw, what Shelley dreamed, vision and vain imagination deemed, the city of delight, the age of gold. Where is it? Where is it? They dreamed. They the thought could enter into the future. The Vedic rishis glimpsed. The rishi who wrote the Bhavishya Purana glimpsed Bhagavad that yes, there is a Kalki avatar. But it couldn't be done. To do it, the divine takes the body, opens the door, and then the rest walks following him. These last 4 lines, 6, 7 lines from Book 1, Canto 4, The Secret Knowledge. One who is in us as our secret self, our mask of imperfection has assumed. Every avatar is a double phenomena, the human and the divine. He takes the human imperfections. Aurobindo raises this in the Gita, that people often say, if Christ was God, why didn't he run away from the cross? Well, if he ran away from the cross, he would not be Christ. If he did some miracle and suddenly he vanished, he showed the bleeding Savior's way. That's why he is the divine. If he ran away, he would not be. If Krishna did a magic and there was no Kurukshetra, he would not be God. If Rama did not face the battle with Ravana in grim earnest, he would not be God. And lament, oh my Sita, where have you gone? Who has taken you? He takes all the human emotions, human states within him to transmute and show the way. Our mask of imperfection has assumed. He has made this tenement of flesh his own. His image in the human measure cast, that to his divine measure we might rise. That's why he assumes the human body. Then in a figure of divinity, the Maker shall recast us and impose a plan of Godhead on the mortal's mold. Impose, look at the words, powerful words, doesn't matter. He will impose a plan of Godhead, original plan, on the mortal's mold, lifting our finite minds to his infinite. Finite minds moving within ifs, buts, ands, doubts, calculation. 1 plus 1 equals to 2. 1 plus 1 equals to 1. It cannot understand. So, एक है जाने सब जने सब जाने एक ना होए. So this is how this touching the moment with eternity. Every moment should be a heartbeat of the eternal in us. And then he says something very beautiful. This transfiguration is earth's due to heaven. It's a contract we had signed. We have forgotten. When first man's heart dared life and death, it entered. He signed a contract. Don't worry. The severe grace is with you. The transformation will happen. We forgot, but he has not. The original contract is with him. This transfiguration is earth's due to heaven. A mutual debt binds man to the supreme. Divine remembers there is a debt. When we dared into this plunge and take on a material body, the psychic being, that's how the Ekoham Bahushyam could be fulfilled. A mutual debt binds man to the supreme. His nature we must put on as he put ours. He becomes human so that we can put on the divine supernature. We are sons of God and must be even as he. What is the sign of that becoming? It's a very beautiful one word in the Upanishads. One of the favorites of Swami Vivekananda. One of the words that we see in the 6 scriptures. What is the sign of the person living in Brahman? Nirbhayo. He's afraid of nothing. The Upanishad speaks of it. Tato na vijugupsate. Shrinks from nothing. Because everywhere, in all, he finds the divine, feels the divine. Shrinks from nothing, is afraid of nothing. So he says, we are sons of God and must be even as he. His human portion, we must grow divine. This is the real story underlying all our outer stories. His human portion, we must grow divine. Our life is a paradox. Paradox of being drawn towards earth and drawn towards heaven. And we don't know. If we turn toward this, we lose that. If we go there, we lose this. This is the paradox. We seek peace but quarrel quickly. We want love but we are quick to hate. We want wisdom but we do the most foolish things and enjoy it. So our life is a paradox. We want health but eat all the unhealthy foods. That was for me. No. Sometimes you have to have exceptions. So that's how human consciousness goes. Our life is a paradox with God for key. Substitute the word God for, in this context, in our context, with the embodied supramental avatars, Aurobindo and the Mother, and we have it all. Thank you.